A pleasure to meet all at last. And so, for today, it is September 19th of 2025. And about a week ago, we went on ahead and got ourselves a copy of the latest issue in the Borderlands series. Yeah, that's right. So, for this installment of the First Impressions, what we're going to do is talk a bit about Borderlands 4. Yeah, so if you hadn't already known by now, this was a series primarily managed and put together by 2K, a company that has been very well represented in the NBA series, but has since branched out in many different ways. I've talked a bit about other franchises and other games that they made, such as Marvel's Midnight Suns, and even their own take on Until Dawn, but the thing is that the Borderlands series is something else that they had put together as their own little first-person shooter series, complete with some unique indie comic animations. Yeah, that's one unique thing about the Borderlands series, is that it has given us a lot of flair, and I've had a lot of memories playing it over the years, especially in the early 2010s when 1 and 2 were mainly some of the best known games when it came to this sort of comic style first-person shooter. But now that we have a fourth installment in the franchise, apart from everything else that had come around, we're going to talk a bit about the fourth game and how well does it hold up compared to the others. For those who aren't familiar with it, well, the story in the franchise primarily sets up around a team of rebels known as Vault Hunters, as well as an organization known as the Crimson Red. And these Crimson Rebels are basically people whom wish to go up against certain people known as the Timekeeper. This person, in particular, the Timekeeper, is one heck of a villain. The Order, as it's officially known as for the antagonist team, they really are hell-bent on trying to make certain planets in the galaxy and the rest of the universe as their own sort of authoritative planet settlements in order for these people to practically be slaves. On top of the already bad things that they already have going on, there's actually a new thing that is going on as well. A newer piece of equipment that they have been hitching onto people's nervous systems that tracks their every move and occasionally allows for the Timekeeper to, in fact, take control of their bodies and automatically control their movements. Yeah, so if you thought that hacking a robot was horrifying to watch, imagine if an actual person were to get hooked up from this device only to get taken over like a possession. It's insane. But what the fourth game does is, at first, it gives us a little background as to what's going on in case anybody hasn't been familiar with the franchise. But then we get an option of 4 different characters, 4 different classes, 4 different names. And even though this is pretty much an RPG game, you don't exactly get much customization. You mostly just have preset characters made so that you can select one of the 4 and move along throughout the rest of the story. I went along with Vax because her being small means she's still technically mighty. That's pretty much the only valid reason I have here. Anyways, she gets summoned by the Timekeeper with the supposed motive being that either she will be of use to him or be a subject worth killing. It turns out that it's mostly the former. She gets hooked up to the device. Her nervous system is now basically under his control, and eventually the room gets blown up. It turns out that the Crimson Red had gotten successfully into this prison complex, where Vex is now being liberated, and the man responsible is known as RJ. Yeah, literally, it's spelled A-R-J-A-Y. It's not exactly the RJ abbreviation that we're all familiar with. Anybody seen Over the Hedge, for instance? Yeah, that's the kind of RJ that we're usually familiar with. But anyways, though, while RJ, as well as his robot assistant known as Echo 4, managed to help Vex break out of the prison complex and escape to safety, that doesn't mean that they are far away from the Timekeeper's wrath. Yeah, so he basically kills them off, allowing for Vex to dive down into the water below, while RJ, unfortunately, doesn't make it out alive. But at least Echo 4 goes along with Vex for the ride. She eventually gets woken up by a crazy robot on some sort of island, in which that supposedly new recruits of the Crimson Red are able to join them along and essentially find their leader. It turns out that this robot, known by the name of Claptrap, is actually meant to be the true leader of the Crimson Red entirely, and Vex is supposedly next of kin because knowing that she broke out of a prison complex and is supposedly going to be a special usage for the Timekeeper means that she is one heck of a person. So it does kind of make sense in that part, being that considering the specialties that we're already used to in the Borderlands series, regardless of the character selection, we're pretty much made as the new leader of Crimson Red. And while there's very minimal numbers so far, mostly due to the Timekeeper having a lot of prison abductions made necessary, and we even saw earlier that dozens of prisoners were escaping, and yet they were all slaughtered. But even RJ didn't even seem fazed by that. I mean, you'd think that with all that death in that one room, he would have been a little more reactive to it. Well, anyways though, the first goal that we're set in mind, thanks to Claptrap, is to find an outpost and take it over. However, he does advise of some personnel known as Rippers. They're basically like raiders of the world of Borderlands. If you thought that Fallout's raiders were pretty tough and vicious, well, these guys are on a similar level here. But being Borderlands, it does have a bit of a distinguishment far away from the Fallout series. These Rippers do come in a variety of different shapes and sizes, and they wield a lot of weapons. And I probably should talk a bit about the weapons. RJ, of course, gave us a pistol, which was our starter weapon at first, and eventually allowed for us to find more weapons along the way. And I will say that the weapons all are pretty nice. You get a good selection of pistols, burst fire and auto fire, as well as a variety of attachments, which I would kind of wish that there was customization out there, but being the Borderlands series, it's not exactly something that I would wholly recommend to anybody out there, especially if customization is something you were looking for. Apart from that though, the weapon selection is still pretty nice. I mean, the variety of pistols, shotguns, rifles, SMGs, snipers, etc. And there's also a good variety of lethal and tactical devices as well, like grenades and flashbangs, as well as mines and other things as well. So it's a lot of the standard fare stuff you'd expect in a first-person shooter, much like with all these newer Call of Duty games and even the latest installment in the Doom series, the Dark Ages. But then of course we do get to the main mission in mind. We're supposed to meet up with another rebellious grouping, and it's a bit of a long journey. We eventually come across a town in which that needs saving, and of course there's a pretty big guy inside that he thankfully welcomes us with open arms. Apart from the help that he gives to us, you could say that this town is one unique venue to visit, as well as a good settlement worth relocating to, should it be necessary. But I will say that the outpost that we had taken over and broadcast our special message to, thanks to Claptrap's help, was pretty much good enough for what it was. But that's not to say that it'll be the only spot in the entire game that you're guaranteed to take over and make a special settlement for the likes of the Crimson Red to settle in and plan on for what's next. All that's going on, though, with all the main missions going on and all the side quests going on, at least from what I've experienced so far, and the Timekeeper is still watching your every move. And occasionally he'll pop in with the voices in your head, and it's a bit creepy for what it is. But again, being Borderlands, that comic style animation just never ceases to amaze me. You gotta hand it to 2K, hand it to the animation team, the creative team, and all that good stuff. Otherwise, I still kind of have a long way to go. I can understand this game being a bit of an affair worth tackling on for a good amount of time. I mean, with all the main missions and side quests I've done so far, I'm already well into level 8. Yeah, no joke. 90 minutes in, and I'm already at level 8. And it's probably no wonder, because I've defeated a few hundred enemies, went up 8 levels, not just from all that, but also from completing a lot of missions, it seems. So you could say this is going to be one big game. Kind of like Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, kind of like the latest Ark game, and kind of like a lot of the other Resident Evil games we've been getting as well. So a lot of things that forge a long path, a long way to go. It's probably not going to be saying a lot, but what more would there be for me to say when I haven't even played the game for that long anyways? So, being a Borderlands title, I feel like it does deserve a nice big score here. And I can understand if some people might have a few reservations against it, as well as 2K and a number of other things, but keep in mind, I'm here for the game, not for the controversy. So, for that, why don't we go on ahead and give it a scoring of 8.6 out of 10.1. So, it does a great job for a lot of things. And being the 4th game in the series, I'm sure we're still going to have some excuse to go through more story and more lore that the franchise itself could potentially give us, but we'll just have to see how that plays out. Anyways, though, I'm probably not done yet, because September is going to have a lot more after today. I mean, we got the next Sonic Racing game out there, and that's already going to be a pretty big release from what I understand, so maybe I'll touch up on that in the next installment. But if you want to see more, go down to my channel, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, follow me wherever you can find me, and stay on the Hollywood side.